Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. Today, I'm going to be playing as the construction worker, mostly using the Frontier Justice and the pistol. I started off with using the default wrench in my melee slot, but later on, I switch it over to the Jaguar. Let's get right down to the core point of this video. I just want to start off by saying thanks. Thank you so very much for 500 subscribers. I cannot believe I made it this far, considering the fact that I've been doing YouTube playthroughs and commentary videos for over a year now, just a little bit over a year. Wow. Having made it to this milestone is truly remarkable. And I know I haven't really been doing playthrough videos my entire time, but for the most part, I think I've gained a lot of these subscriptions from the amount of content videos that have to do with video games. Initially, when I started off, I'm gonna just quickly go through the history of my YouTube channel, so it's kind of relevant to this video just because it's a milestone. Initially, I started off with YouTube. I began uploading video game music. It was a bit of a mess around the beginning because during the time I wanted to get involved in a fan game project called Mushroom Kingdom Fusion, and my quote-unquote involvement with that was I was uploading all the music tracks that were used in said fan game. I say it was a bit of a mess because it was all just various different tracks and remixes from various different games and remixes off of other music from different games, and had to credit everyone here and there and just about everywhere. It's just... After that, I moved on to just other video game music that people have probably already uploaded all across the universe, so wasn't exactly doing things much different. I think I uploaded like Serious Sam music and also Mega Man 3, but that's been removed since because Germany didn't really like one of the music tracks I had uploaded, and I'm not really going to get into too much detail about that copyright infringement thing. So, around last year, about like not 1.5 years ago, what am I saying? A bit over a year since I started doing YouTube content like playthroughs and things like that. I initially didn't start with a Half-Life playthrough. If anyone has been around for that long, I first started off with a Half-Life playthrough, but before that, I think the very first commentary video I ever did was one on Minecraft, and yeah, you can imagine that was pretty horrible. So I started off with Half-Life. The worst things about my Half-Life playthrough were, one, I was pretty inexperienced. Two, during the first 6 episodes, I believe, I faked a British accent, and you could probably tell it was faked because I'm Canadian, and I haven't been around enough British people to know what a British accent is actually like. And three, laptop. I was playing Half-Life on a laptop, and as such, I was using a line-in mic, because at the time, since I was just starting, didn't really have a headset or anything. You could probably hear a lot of the fan noise in the background. I cannot even begin to describe how horrible that everything just was about that situation. But I think the best thing about doing that playthrough was that it pushed me to the point where I just wanted to keep making content. I wanted to go past the point of just doing a single playthrough. I managed to complete it eventually, and then I figured, okay, if I've made it this far, I should probably get it like a gaming PC, and then move on to a bigger project. So, I did just that, and said bigger project was basically doing more playthrough videos, but also doing Team Fortress 2 content. And by then, I hadn't really played TF2 in a long time, so around the beginning of when I started making TF2 videos, I was pretty bad. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It was not the best gameplay you could be watching. I died many times, and the quality, kinda questionable. But having said this, having made it this far, TF2 is definitely the pinnacle of what made me just this popular, I guess you could say. I'm not the most popular YouTuber in the universe, so I'm not going to say that aloud, but I will say that TF2 has definitely been the popularity factor when it comes to uploading videos. It's just been something that I've really enjoyed doing over the past many months. I do enjoy doing playthrough videos too, like, among all things, live commentaries are definitely my favorite. Post commentaries I somewhat struggle with, like even right now, just doing this commentary is kinda difficult to keep up the pace. But that being said, the best thing that you could do is just keep practicing at this. So, my inspirations for doing YouTube, now that we've gotten the whole history aspect of my video uploading out of the way, my inspirations were mostly some of like the bigwig TF2 commentators at the time. You have Star, you have Jerma, things like that. And I was also inspired by a panda named Garrett. And if you've not checked his channel out, please do. He plays a variety of different games that aren't Team Fortress 2, but he is probably one of the best commentators out there. Pretty underrated, I would say, so go check him out if you haven't yet. And just here we are. I've made it this far to 500 subscribers, and I have to say, with my inspirations in mind, and with all of you in mind, just thank you all so much for giving me a chance on YouTube. Now, if anyone wants to know if I'm doing anything in celebration of 500 subscribers, that's going to be a bit on delay. First of all, if anyone's wondering if I'm going to be doing a giveaway, I'm gonna hold off on that for the time being. It's not because of Scream Fortress 2014. I know that Scream Fortress is gonna be coming up in about 12 days. I can't really say I'm looking forward to it because the last Scream Fortress didn't exactly impress me that much. It had some interesting gimmicks, and it was not just another copy-paste project of another King of the Hill map, but then again, you were trying to get people to win at Hightower. Hell Tower is what their new Halloween map was, and Hightower, it's not really a map you're supposed to win, it's just one that I consider that you have to screw around in. We're just gonna leave it at that, because I'm pretty sure everyone knows what the real objective of Hightower is. So, this year's Scream Fortress, not gonna be opening any crates, none of the spooky crates at all, because I don't really enjoy seeing the Halloween items just not being able to be used unless you have like an Eternal spell. What I am saving up for is definitely the Smithmas. This year's Smithmas, I'll probably open a bunch of Naughty Nice crates once those come around. See if I can get some festive weapons and festive gear. Probably will do a giveaway by then. And, who knows? Maybe I'll have 750 subscribers by then. Or, if I'm lucky, 1,000. That's a bit of a gamble, though. But 1,000 subscribers by Christmas time would be pretty amazing, I will admit. So, you never know. Only time will tell. By then, I plan on doing a giveaway. As for 500 subscribers right now, if anyone is curious as to if I'm going to do a Q&A video, I'm probably going to hold off that session again until I reach maybe 750 or 1,000. For the time being, I'm just going to keep making videos, so I apologize if you were looking forward to something. Well, unfortunately no, you're just going to have to wait a little bit longer than that. But yeah, I guess that's all that needs to be said about future plans, and once more, I would like to say thanks. I'm probably gonna keep saying thanks over and over during this video, maybe even at the end, because it's part of my outro. But I think we're gonna move on to talking a bit about the gameplay. Yeah, we're actually going to be talking about the gameplay for a little bit. It's not something I do very often in my videos, but since this is a special occasion, might as well just getting that Devil Man to suicide right off of me. And we're actually going to talk a bit about the Frontier Justice, which is a very interesting weapon. It was the first new weapon, I think, for the Engineer that was added way back when in the Engineer update. And it's definitely an underrated shotgun. I really do love the Frontier Justice, and I'm really sad that I haven't given it enough love, because the crit mechanic is simply amazing. Your sentry gets destroyed, you could just go on a killing spree with shotgun crits, because the shotgun is a rather underrated weapon. At maximum crit, it does 180 damage. If you have not figured that out yet, that's quite a lot of damage. Chances are, the enemy is not going to survive unless they get a random crit, which raises the question about why you would use the Frontier Justice on a random crit server. This just being another typical Valve server that I usually play on, there always exists the risk of just losing all those revenge crits because you died to that one rather lucky critical rocket that managed to just destroy you by that soldier who probably had very little health. This just happens to everyone. Using the Frontier Justice on a random crit server might seem redundant, and the same can be said for a lot of weapons that have a crit-based mechanic, like the Diamondback, which can be a bit difficult to use, and because, well, it's a pistol, you know. With the Frontier Justice, you at least have the pellet spread. With a revolver, the shots have to be accurate, otherwise they just simply won't count. And then there's the Phlogistinator, which is in a world on itself. I wouldn't recommend you use it, not because of the crit mechanic, because the crit mechanic honestly balances out the Phlogistinator well, with the fact that it's just no air blast. if you don't have like the man melter, you can't extinguish fires, and the fact that you don't even have a secondary weapon that can air blast or has that function thereof, it's just awful. So, that all being said, with the Frontier Justice, I think it's definitely the best weapon you could be using that rewards you with crits. Mostly just because of how much of the team player the engineer actually is. The main problem with engineer is that he usually has difficulty surviving on himself, and when your sentry gets destroyed, there really isn't much you can do. My style of play with the Frontier Justice is that I'm usually not afraid to leave my sentry alone as long as it has a few kills racked up, because if I stay alive for as long as I can, then as soon as my sentry gets destroyed, then I could just go on a killing spree with all of these critical hits that are stored in my shotgun. I like to think that the Frontier Justice definitely works best when you have at least a second engineer on the team, because if you're the first and the only engineer, you might want to consider giving your sentry gun a little bit more love and attention that it deserves. That's usually why I play with the Rescue Ranger, but switching weapons from time to time is definitely recommended, and I would say that the Frontier Justice is definitely one of my favorite picks, due to the fact that it just has the stored crit mechanic. It's a real shame that you can't get the stored crits if you die. I know that there are some servers that actually do have a plugin that lets you have your stored crits if you die and your sentry is destroyed, but it's a little bit overpowered in real play, and I wouldn't exactly recommend that Valve change it, but if they did, I would have no beef with it because it would still be pretty awesome. It would still make the engineer an actual threat on the battlefield, because if you just died again, then you wouldn't have those crits anymore, so it wouldn't really matter, but, well, maybe I'm thinking a little bit too deep into this. I know one thing about the Gunslinger that someone was mentioning to me before, I think it might have been Mage Bones, is Mage Bones said that the Gunslinger would be pretty cool with the mini sentry. If you died, then the mini sentry would die with you. You would basically have to be active for the mini sentry to do work. Otherwise, if you were just sitting waiting to respawn, your mini sentry would automatically destroy itself. Which I can't really argue with, would be an interesting little feature, I guess, but the Gunslinger at the same time, the mini sentry is still not the best alternative you could be using. The extra health is nice, but I still like building an actual sentry gun. Maybe on the occasion I'll use the Gunslinger, but that's a story for another day. That's a tangent that I really shouldn't be going on about when I'm talking about my current loadout, which is the Frontier Justice. Now here in this part of the gameplay, there's nothing really guarding the point, and this area could actually be easily flanked. Where I had my sentry built earlier, that's actually a fairly good location because it has a nice field of view. Down here in this little pit is usually where engineers like to bundle up, but it's definitely a risk because there are lots of places where your sentry could be destroyed, such as the balcony, way up on the left, and also that window which is just to the left of the point. And there's also the right side. If your sentry is far on the left, it could still easily be spammed out from both the right side, where people can run towards your spawn, or also just in general sticky bombs that are being plopped down by enemy demo men. And so it's getting a little bit dangerous down here. I unleash a couple of crits onto people who are trying to storm the point. I think the other sentry might have gone down for a little bit, so I figured I should just back off with my revenge crits and just try to be patient with what comes to me. So right here, just setting up a dispenser, and that medic goes off to go hit people with an uber saw. So, setting up a dispenser, then suddenly a scout appears, and he's dead, didn't have to worry about that, and then an Uber appears. And this is where I thought I was going to die and lose all 9 revenge crits, but no. They're so focused on capping the point that I'm able to use these revenge crits to a very good benefit. As such, down they go. I miss a couple of shots, but nobody's perfect. And I'm sorry, medic, but you had to die right there. But at least you dropped your medigun, so I could use it for metal. The unfortunate thing is, even if I tried to build a dispenser, that medic probably wouldn't have lived, and if he had tried to run for that medkit over on the opposite end of the point, he probably still would have burned out, which is rather unfortunate. Maybe this heavy right here could have given him a sandwich, but it's a little too late to make that decision. So medic, if you are watching this, I highly appreciate your sacrifice. And now there's only 30 seconds left on the clock, and this is actually kind of interesting, how I'm actually talking about the gameplay rather than just talking about an entirely different subject altogether, so kind of an interesting balance. Maybe I should do this more often because it's honestly kind of fun. Just sitting here, leveling up my dispenser. Talking about leveling up dispensers, that's probably the best thing I could be doing. But the best thing about gameplays is when you die at the very end of the round. And here's where I demonstrate this perfectly. I get killed by a brass beast heavy. Oh, the pity and the sadness. And that's gonna be the end of the gameplay, so thank you once more for 500 subscribers. I look forward to the next milestone, and thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video.